Have you ever heard a story so wild, so explosive, that you had to stop and ask yourself, wait, is this really happening? Well, brace yourself. Because what you're about to hear didn't just shake a Hollywood studio. It didn't just rattle a production team. It didn't just start whisper campaigns in royal circles. It rattled Prince Harry himself. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. But before we get to Harry's fury, his confrontation, and the private meltdown that insiders claim nearly broke the walls of Montecito, let's start with the moment everything began to unravel. A simple audition room, a table read, a show called Close Personal Friends, and Meghan Markle walking into that room with the kind of confidence that can either inspire a team or ignite a firestorm. So let me ask you this. What happens when a duchess tries to become a Hollywood leading lady again and discovers the spotlight isn't as forgiving as it once was? That's where our story begins. Because according to multiple fictional insiders in this dramatization, Meghan believed Close Personal Friends would be the show that redefined her career. A sleek, high-profile Amazon MGM project. Prestige television. Big budget. A-list creatives. A chance to step back into the world she left behind. A chance to prove that Meghan Markle wasn't just a duchess. Not just a former actress. Not just a royal headline generator. But a legitimate star. At least, that was the dream. But from the moment she arrived on set, something felt off. Not dramatically. Not obviously. At first, it was subtle. A tone. A tension. A presence that made some people shift in their chairs and exchange glances. Maybe it was nerves. Maybe it was excitement. Maybe it was something else entirely. You tell me. Because according to the fictional staff accounts in this dramatization, Meghan walked onto that set as if it were already built around her. As if the cameras were pointed at her, even when they weren't rolling. As if she had stepped not into an ensemble project, but into her own coronation. One crew member supposedly whispered, "She walked in like she owned the place." Another, "It was like we were extras in her movie." A third, "From day one, she had notes about everything. The script, the lighting, the costumes, even the chairs." But was this confidence or control? Was it empowerment or entitlement? That question would soon tear through the studio like wildfire. Because what began as minor tensions soon grew into something louder, sharper, undeniable. Take the first table read. Everyone was seated, scripts marked, coffee cups filled, and the director began warm introductions. But Meghan allegedly didn't wait. She didn't hesitate. She didn't fall into line with the rest of the cast. She took the spotlight. Immediately. "Before we begin," fictional insiders claim she said, "I have some concerns about my character's arc." Not questions. Not clarifications. Concerns. And the room froze. Producers exchanged quiet glances. The director paused mid-sentence. A junior writer reportedly swallowed so loudly it echoed. Now let's pause right here. Because I want to ask you something. At what point does confidence turn into something else? At what point does a performer shift from collaborative to commanding? At what point does the room stop admiring you and start fearing you? According to this fictional dramatization, that shift happened faster than anyone saw coming. Because Meghan didn't just question her lines. She questioned other actors' lines. She questioned the pacing. She questioned plot points. She questioned whether certain scenes were worthy of her time. And here's where things darkened. Because the more she spoke, the quieter the room became. And not the good kind of quiet. Not the respectful, "let's hear her out" silence. No, the silence of people who suddenly realize, oh, this is going to be a problem. But the real twist? The one no one saw coming? It wasn't the director who lost patience first. It wasn't the producers. It wasn't the staff. It wasn't even the other actors. It was someone who knew the industry inside and out. A woman who had been in Hollywood longer than Meghan had been alive. A woman who had worked with legends. A woman who didn't tolerate disrespect, especially not in her house. The showrunner. She leaned forward, folded her script, looked Meghan straight in the eye, and said, "We will take your notes. But you're here to act, not rewrite the show." The room stopped breathing. Meghan blinked. Twice. Slowly. And according to fictional eyewitnesses, that was the moment the atmosphere shattered like glass. Because Meghan did not take that well. She stiffened, straightened her back, pressed her lips together, and delivered a line that one crew member said they could not believe actually came out of her mouth. "If this is how things are going to be handled, we're going to have a problem. A problem." Those words echoed in that room. Cold, sharp, foreshadowing everything that was coming next. Now let's zoom out. Because this wasn't just a clash of personalities. This wasn't just an uncomfortable moment at a table read. According to our fictionalized timeline, this was the spark that ignited weeks of tension. Staff reported more interruptions, more demands, more side conversations, more adjustments Meghan allegedly insisted on. Wardrobe, makeup, camera angles, scripting, casting, blocking. Every department felt her influence. Some quietly, some loudly, some tearfully. And yet, despite the whispers, the stress, and the tension simmering behind the scenes, production kept going. Until the day everything blew up. Until the day rumors started that Meghan had been removed from set, escorted out, kicked off. But before that nuclear moment, before the chaos that followed, before Harry's raging confrontation, there was another turning point. A moment so unexpected, so out of control, that fictional staff members still talk about it in shaking voices. A moment where Meghan allegedly clashed not just with a colleague, not just with a director, but with the entire leadership team. And you're going to hear that moment in Chapter 1. But we're not there yet, because there's one more thing you need to know before the real explosion hits. Prince Harry had no idea any of this was happening. None. Not the tension, not the meetings, not the emails, not the frustrations building behind the scenes. He believed Meghan's Hollywood comeback was going smoothly, effortlessly, victorious. He had no clue his wife was heading straight into a storm that would soon reach him and drag him in with full force. But when he finally found out, he didn't just react. He erupted. And that eruption was only the beginning. Because what happened next didn't just threaten Meghan's role. It didn't just threaten her reputation. It didn't just threaten the show. It threatened everything. Her Hollywood future. Their Montecito image. Their fragile public standing. Their marriage. Their stability. Their entire post-royal narrative. And yes, production staff were about to expose something far more damaging than bossiness. Something deeper. Something harsher. Something that would leave Harry stunned. But what was it? What did the staff see? What did they experience? What drove them to speak out at all? That, my friend, is where the Real story begins. Because what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. What if the moment everything fell apart wasn't a dramatic explosion, but a whisper, a breath, a shift in the air so small you wouldn't notice unless you were watching closely? Because according to several fictional insiders, that's exactly how it began. But before we get into the meltdown, the confrontation, the outrage, the incident that changed everything, we need to go to the very first day Meghan stepped into the beating heart of close personal friends. Amazon MGM's Pride Project, the show they believed would define their next wave of prestige drama. And yet, the moment Meghan walked through those glass studio doors, the building felt different. Not electrified, not excited, not inspired. Heavy. Like the energy shifted, one fictional crew member said. Everyone stood up straighter. Like the boss just walked in. Except she wasn't the boss. But try telling Meghan Markle that. She arrived with a confidence that cut through the room like a blade. Structured coat, designer shoes, perfect hair, a smile that said, "You should be grateful I'm here." Every step measured, every glance deliberate. It wasn't the walk of an actress coming to do her job. It was the walk of a woman returning to reclaim a throne. And maybe that was the problem. Because Hollywood hadn't been waiting for her. It hadn't paused. It hadn't mourned her absence. It moved on. But Meghan? She walked in like it hadn't. Producers watched her enter the room as if she were arriving at a red carpet premiere, not a script table read. Cameras weren't rolling. But she acted like they should be. She placed her bag on a chair. Not just any chair, the director's chair. A fictional production assistant, trying to be polite, gently murmured, that's actually the director's seat." Meghan looked at her slowly, as if the words themselves were an insult. "Is it?" she asked, voice low, controlled. "Well, we can adjust." But she didn't move. And the room took note. Not a disaster. Not a scandal. A spark. A tiny, fragile spark. But even the smallest spark can burn down an entire set. The table read began. Scripts rustled. Pens clicked. Writers whispered cues. The director smiled warmly, trying to break the tension Meghan left hanging in the air like smoke. Thank you all for coming. We're excited too. I actually have a quick note before we begin, Meghan said, lifting her hand slightly, palm facing the director as though she were halting a servant. The director blinked. Writers froze. Producers leaned in. This was not normal. This scene, Meghan continued, tapping page 3 of the script, doesn't feel authentic to my character. I don't think she would behave this way. It undermines her intelligence. The room fell still, not because she spoke, but because it was her tone, as if she wasn't giving input, as if she were giving orders. A senior writer offered gently, "We can discuss adjustments after the table read." "No," Meghan said. Flat, cold, final. The writer's face tightened. She didn't say another word. The director sighed quietly, almost imperceptibly, but not imperceptibly enough. Meghan noticed. Her eyes narrowed, her jaw tightened, and her voice, her voice, slid into something sharper. "If you want this character to resonate," she said, "you'll need to fix moments like this. If that's a problem, let me know now." That sentence hung in the air like a threat. Not even 15 minutes into day one. Imagine that. Let me ask you something, directly, because this is where you become part of the story. How would you react if someone joined your project, your team, your creative space, and acted like they owned it on sight? Would you speak up? Would you stay quiet? Would you try to keep the peace? Or would something inside you snap? Because according to these fictional insiders, something snapped in multiple people that day. Quietly, silently, but undeniably. One cast member slid their script away from Meghan's reach after she corrected their line reading. Another texted the showrunner under the table. "We have a situation." The showrunner didn't respond. Not then. Not yet. But she felt it. Everyone did. The tension was no longer subtle. It was thick, visible. And then came the moment that ignited the first real flame. A supporting actress read her line. A powerful, emotional moment, and Meghan cut in mid-sentence. No, she said, shaking her head. "That's not the right tone." The actress blinked, stunned. "The right tone?" she repeated, trying to smile. "Yes," Meghan insisted. "You're missing the subtext. She's insecure here. You're playing her like she's confident. That's wrong." The actress just stared. Writers stared too. The director inhaled sharply. A producer raised an eyebrow so high it nearly left her forehead. And the actress, desperately trying to stay professional, said, "Meghan, with respect, the director will guide tone." Meghan smiled, but not kindly. "Well," she replied, "someone has to." Boom. The room imploded in silence. That wasn't a spark. That wasn't a flame. That was an alarm bell. The table read limped on, dragging itself forward with the same energy as a ship taking on water. The mood shifted from tension to frustration to disbelief. Some staff tried to ignore Meghan's interruptions. Some scribbled furious notes. Some scribbled resignation drafts. But everyone noticed one thing. Meghan wasn't just questioning choices. She was dictating them. She wasn't just offering input. She was overriding people. She wasn't just asserting herself. She was asserting dominance. Her confidence didn't fill the room. It crushed it. And here's where the fictional insiders said things took a darker turn. After the table read wrapped, Meghan walked straight to the writer's table and handed over her script, covered in handwritten notes. Not questions, not ideas, not suggestions, edits, major ones. Entire scenes slashed, dialogues rewritten, motivations altered, storylines reshaped, and written across one page in thick black ink. "This doesn't work for me. Rewrite." The head writer, calm, professional, seasoned, looked at the page for a full 3 seconds before responding. "We'll consider these," she said carefully. Meghan leaned in. Close. Too close. "No," she whispered. "You'll implement them." The head writer's breath caught in her throat. She stared at Meghan. Meghan stared back. And for the first time that day, someone said no. "No," the head writer repeated quietly. "We won't." Meghan's expression hardened. "On the face of this show," she said. "No," the head writer replied. "You're part of it." The silence that followed felt like a countdown. Tick, tick, tick. The head writer later said she felt something shift right then. Something irreversible. Because Meghan didn't just frown. She didn't just stiffen. She didn't just disagree. She glared and walked away. Not a word. Not a smile. Not a goodbye. Just a chilling, controlled walk toward the exit. But it wasn't over. Not even close. Because according to fictional staffers who were clearing the table, Meghan muttered something under her breath on her way out. Something quiet, but not quiet enough. Something that made two assistants freeze, exchange wide-eyed looks, and whisper, "Did she really just say that? What did she say?" What was the moment that made staff start documenting everything? What was the comment that turned tension into alarm? We're about to get there. But not yet. Because before the comment, before the spark turned to flame, something else happened that shook the day even more. Something no one expected. Something that revealed Meghan wasn't just clashing with writers. She was clashing with the entire creative hierarchy. The director, the producers, and the showrunner. The showrunner who had stayed silent until now. She watched. She listened. She took in every shift in the room. And when Meghan stepped out, the showrunner finally exhaled and said quietly, "We need to talk." With that, she motioned the director and head producer into a private glass-walled office upstairs. Staff watched them go. No one spoke. No one moved. They knew. A line had been crossed. The meeting lasted nearly half an hour. Raised voices. Hands thrown in frustration. Scripts waved. Agitated pacing. Downstairs, whispers spread like wildfire. What's going on? Are they going to say something? Is this already a problem? Should we be documenting this? And then, the office door opened. The showrunner came out stiff, composed, but with tension in her jaw like she was clenching down an entire storm. A staffer later said, "I knew then something big was coming." And they were right. Because when Meghan returned, she walked straight toward them. Chin lifted. Eyes fiery. Energy crackling. She had heard about the meeting. Someone told her. Who? They never figured out. But the moment she appeared, the showrunner stepped forward. "Meghan," she began, "we need to discuss today's concerns." "No," Meghan said sharply. "You need to discuss your tone." The room collectively inhaled. This wasn't tension anymore. This was confrontation. And then Meghan said the sentence, the fictional sentence, that became the turning point for everything that followed. The one staff wrote down. The one manager circled. The one that started the chain reaction that would end her time on the project. She said, "If you can't run this production properly, I will." And that's the moment. According to this dramatized account, the showrunner made a decision that would change the entire trajectory of Meghan's Hollywood comeback. A decision that staff would later describe as inevitable. A decision Meghan never saw coming. But what was that decision? What did the showrunner do? What did she say? And how did it lead to the incident that crossed the line? You're about to find out. Because what came next would change everything. And no one saw it coming. The showrunner didn't raise her voice. She didn't posture. She didn't snap back at Meghan. Instead, she did something far more unsettling. She smiled. A small, tight, controlled smile. The kind that meant trouble was no longer brewing. It had arrived. "Thank you for your feedback," she said gently. Too gently. "We'll handle things from here." Meghan blinked, thrown off for the first time all day. She had expected pushback, anger, defensiveness, something she could spar against. But this calm, icy composure, it rattled her. Not visibly. Meghan was too polished for that. But inside, something shifted. The power dynamic, the tone of the day, the entire atmosphere of the production. Because when a showrunner stops arguing and starts smiling, you're no longer in a disagreement. You're in trouble. The showrunner turned to the director and producer. "Office. Now." They followed her upstairs silently, leaving Meghan standing in the middle of the room, surrounded by crew pretending to be busy. Not one person met her eye. Not one person said a word. Not one person offered comfort. It was the loneliest moment Meghan had experienced since stepping onto the set. And she felt it. She straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin, and exhaled slowly. A long, controlled breath like she was preparing for battle. Then she walked out of the room with the slow, calculated grace of a queen, leaving a room full of disobedient subjects. But as soon as the door closed behind her, chaos broke loose. She can't talk to the showrunner like that. Did she just threaten to take over the production? What does she think this is? Suits 2.0. Someone needs to tell Amazon. Someone already did. Voices whispered. Pens scratched across paper. Texts were sent. Notes were filed. You know how Hollywood works. When things go wrong, People document everything, and Meghan had just given them plenty to document. A fictional assistant producer opened a new file on her tablet titled, Meghan, Day 1 Incident Log. That file would soon fill with dozens of entries. But this was entry number 1. Let's cut back to the upstairs office. Because while the crew whispered downstairs, the real storm was happening behind closed doors. The showrunner paced slowly, controlled, like a lioness deciding whether to pounce. The director sat with his head in his hands. The lead producer rubbed her temples like she could massage the tension away. Finally, the showrunner spoke. She challenged my authority in front of the entire team. The director nodded. Yes. She contradicted me multiple times. Yes. She interrupted actors. Yes. She undermined your direction. He paused. Yes. And then, the showrunner said, her voice dropping to a dangerous quiet. She said she would run the production. Silence. Thick. Heavy. Suffocating. And then the producer said the words no one wanted to say, but everyone was thinking. We may have a cast problem. No one responded. Because the moment those words enter the air, they become real. The director finally whispered, Are we saying what I think we're saying? We're not making a decision yet, the showrunner replied sharply. But we are taking action. What action? The producer asked. The showrunner looked toward the glass wall, her eyes narrowing slightly, as if she were staring through the building itself, straight at the problem sitting somewhere on the ground floor. Supervision, she said. Documentation. Boundaries. And immediate escalation to Amazon MGM Corporate. The director looked sick. Already, she said firmly. She crossed a line, and she knows it. But here's where the story takes a turn. Because while the leadership team strategized upstairs, Meghan wasn't cooling off. She was heating up. According to fictional security logs, Meghan didn't go to her trailer. She didn't go for a walk. She walked straight to the wardrobe department. Why? Because when Meghan feels things slipping out of her control, she reaches for the one thing she believes she can always command. Her image. And when she burst into wardrobe, the costume designer. A gentle, soft-spoken woman who had worked on dozens of high-profile productions, looked up with a confused smile. Oh, Meghan, did the table read wrap early? Meghan shut the door behind her with a heavy click. Her voice low, intense, she said. Why wasn't I shown the updated wardrobe options yesterday? The designer blinked. Updated? We didn't send anything yesterday. We're still fitting. That's the problem, Meghan snapped. You should be working faster. The designer froze, her hand still holding a stack of fabric swatches. She wasn't used to being spoken to that way. Not by actors. Not even by stars. But Meghan wasn't done. This look, she said, pointing at a sketch, is unflattering. It matches the scene tone. It makes me look ordinary. The character. Make it work. The designer tried again. Meghan, we're still testing silhouettes, and make it work. The designer's face fell. And here's the moment that fictional insiders say broke the wardrobe team. Meghan reached down, grabbed a sketch, and tore it clean in half, right down the center. The designer gasped. Not dramatically, genuinely. The kind of gasp you let out when something crosses a line so inappropriate your brain needs a second to process it. Meghan, this entire board needs to be redone, Meghan said. By tomorrow morning. But that's impossible, the designer whispered. We'd need 4 days. Then work faster. Downstairs, crew watched Meghan leave wardrobe with the same slow, calculated stride she had when leaving the table red. Only this time, her eyes were sharper, colder, determined. Something had shifted in her. She wasn't just irritated. She wasn't just defensive. She was preparing for a fight. And that's dangerous. Because when a production begins, everyone is supposed to be on the same team. But Meghan seemed ready to wage a war. Except, here's the twist. She was waging the wrong one. Because while she believed the staff were falling in line, they were uniting behind the scenes. Against her, one fictional makeup artist whispered to set security. Are we supposed to report what happened in wardrobe? Security responded. Yes. Another assistant whispered to a producer. She's pushing everyone too far. And the producer replied. It's only day 1. Day 1. Just imagine that. If this was day 1, what would day 2 look like? What about week 1? Or week 2? Or the moment when Amazon MGM corporate reviewed the incident reports that were piling up faster than the script pages Meghan wanted to rewrite. But before any of that could unfold, something else happened. Something that pushed everything over the edge. Because after snapping at wardrobe, criticizing scripts, and clashing with the showrunner, Meghan made a phone call. A call that staff overheard. A call that only lasted 90 seconds. A call that changed everything. She called Harry. And according to fictional witnesses in this dramatization, he did not like what he heard. At all. But what did Meghan tell him? What was Harry's reaction? And how did this phone call become the prelude to the incident that crossed the line? That moment, that phone call, is where Chapter 2 begins. And the truth is, what came next would change everything. And no one saw it coming. The call lasted 90 seconds. 90 seconds that echoed through the entire studio like a siren only the staff could hear. Everyone felt the shift, subtle at first, then chillingly clear. Something had been unleashed. Meghan stepped outside into the courtyard behind Stage C, away from cameras and crew. But sound travels in open spaces, especially when you don't bother lowering your voice. A fictional lighting technician, walking by to grab cables, heard the first burst. "This is unacceptable, Harry." Meghan snapped into the phone. Her voice wasn't just sharp, it was brittle, shaken, threatened. A voice that wasn't fighting for control, but clinging to it. The tech slowed his pace, pretending to check his phone. You know how it goes. When something intense is happening, people become part-time statues. "What do you mean, calm down?" Meghan's voice rose. "No, you don't understand. They're disrespecting me." Silence, from Harry's end. Then, "Disrespecting you how?" The tech didn't hear Harry's words, but he heard Meghan repeat them sarcastically. "Disrespecting me how? Really? They're ignoring my suggestions. They're challenging me in front of everyone. They're undermining my authority." Authority. That word again. She kept saying it like she believed she had it, or needed it, or was terrified of losing it. "I'm the lead," she hissed. "I deserve input." Another pause. Then Meghan's tone darkened. "No, Harry. Don't do that. Don't take their side." A tense beat. "Harry, listen to me. They're trying to push me out." The tech froze. He wasn't even pretending to move anymore. He was locked in like a deer that wandered into a theater rehearsal. Push her out? That wasn't even on the table, not yet. But Meghan believed it, or wanted Harry to believe it. She paced the courtyard like a caged animal. "I will not be treated this way. Not after everything I've sacrificed." Her heels clicked violently against the pavement. Another silence. Then Meghan's voice cracked. "They had a meeting without me." Oh, there it was. The wound. The showrunner's closed-door meeting wasn't a leadership decision to keep peace. To Meghan, it was betrayal. "Fix it," she demanded. The tech raised his eyebrows. "Fix it? Fix, as in what exactly?" "Call someone," Meghan ordered. "Talk to whoever you have to. This is your industry too." Another pause. Meghan stopped walking. Completely. "Oh, don't you dare bring up the palace right now," she whispered angrily, voice trembling. That line sent a chill down the technician's back. Because why would Harry bring up the palace? Unless Meghan had made the comparison herself. And Harry was warning her about repeating history. "I'm not being difficult," Meghan shouted suddenly. "I'm being professional." A bird flew off a nearby tree at the volume of her voice. Then Meghan delivered the line that staff would later repeat in hushed retellings. "If they think they can replace me, they have no idea who they're dealing with." And with that, she hung up. Hard. She turned around. And that's when she saw him. The lighting technician. Frozen mid-step, cable in hand, face pale like he'd witnessed something he absolutely, definitely should not have. Meghan didn't shout. Didn't panic. Didn't retreat. She stepped slowly toward him. Her eyes sharpened to thin, dangerous lines. "Did you hear any of that?" she asked quietly. The tech swallowed. "Just walking by." Meghan held his gaze for 3 long seconds. "Good," she said. "Then don't repeat it." She walked away. The tech stood there for a full minute afterward, heart racing. Then, trembling, he added a new entry to the incident log. Now, here's where things go from chaotic to catastrophic. Because Meghan believed that call had helped her. She believed Harry would step in, intervene, flex his connections, apply pressure. But Harry didn't do any of that. Not yet. Instead, he reached out privately to someone else. Someone many fictional insiders said he shouldn't have contacted. Someone who would later play a very unexpected role in this story. Who? We'll get to that later. Because before Harry made his move, the showrunner made hers. And it was brutal. Less than an hour after the phone call, Meghan was summoned back upstairs. A staff member approached her tentatively, as though approaching a sleeping tiger. Meghan, they'd like to see you upstairs. Meeting room 2. Meghan didn't hesitate. She marched up the stairs, chin high, back straight, ready to confront them again. Except this time, they were ready for her. The showrunner was seated. The director was seated. The producer was seated. And in the center of the table was a printed document. Not a script. Not notes. Not a schedule. A form. Meghan's eyes narrowed. What is this? She asked. The showrunner didn't blink. A behavioral conduct notice, she said calmly. Meghan's mouth fell open. It was the smallest reaction she'd shown all day, but the most revealing. You're giving me a warning? She asked, stunned. A documented guideline, the showrunner corrected. Not a warning. It's the same thing. It isn't, the director interjected, sympathetic but firm. But it can become one. Meghan's breathing sharpened. This is absurd. The showrunner clasped her hands together with a patience that wasn't patience at all. Meghan, she began gently. There are expectations on every set. Professional expectations. Collaboration. Respect for the creative team. Respect for your fellow actors. Respect for the production hierarchy. I have respected everyone, Meghan snapped. The producer's eyebrow lifted. Just slightly. As we move forward, the showrunner continued. We need to reset the tone. Everyone wants this production to succeed. Including you. The phrasing was diplomatic. The subtext wasn't. Sign the paper. Behave, or there will be consequences. Meghan stared at the document, then at the 3 pairs of eyes watching her. Then she said something none of them expected. Something that made the director shift in his seat, the producer inhale sharply, and the showrunner blink. Once, slowly. I'll sign it, Meghan said. If you sign one for me. Silence. What? The showrunner finally asked. You expect respect? Meghan said. Then show it. You embarrassed me in front of the cast. You dismissed my concerns. You ignored my experience. So you sign a conduct form too. The showrunner's face stayed calm, but the air in the room dropped 10 degrees. Meghan, she said softly, that's not how this works. Then I'm not signing. The meeting hit a wall. A hard one. The director rubbed his forehead. The producer stared at the table. The showrunner exhaled very quietly, and then she spoke the sentence that changed the direction of the entire production. If you refuse to sign, we take this to corporate. Meghan froze. Corporate. Amazon, MGM corporate. That wasn't a warning. That was a loaded weapon placed gently on the table between them. And that's when it happened. The slip. The crack in Meghan's calm. She leaned forward, eyes blazing, and whispered, You wouldn't dare. The showrunner didn't flinch. We already have. Downstairs, crew felt the vibration of that confrontation through the floorboards. They didn't know the details, but they could sense the shift. And soon after, whispers began circulating. She refused to sign. They're escalating it. She crossed a line. This is going to blow up. Corporate is getting involved. On day one, the first day, and yet, they all felt it. The storm wasn't coming. It was here. But the storm wasn't just Meghan. It wasn't just the set. It wasn't even the showrunner. It was something bigger. Something none of them anticipated. Because corporate didn't respond with a memo. They didn't respond with a meeting. They didn't respond with a warning. They responded with a person. A representative. Someone Meghan absolutely did not expect to see. Someone whose arrival would knock the entire production off balance. And set the stage for the incident in Chapter 2. Who walked onto that set? What did they say? And why did Meghan's expression, according to fictional witnesses, turn to stone the moment she saw them? You're about to find out. Because what came next would change everything. And no one saw it coming. Have you ever watched a room full of people freeze at the exact same moment? Like the air gets sucked out of the walls. Like everything slows down because someone has just walked in who absolutely, definitely shouldn't be there? That's what happened on the set of Close Personal Friends when the Amazon MGM representative arrived. No warning. No announcement. No email. Just the sound of the studio entrance door swinging open and the slow, heavy echo of expensive shoes hitting concrete. Tap. 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 The kind of footsteps that say, something is wrong, and it's about to get worse. A fictional assistant director looked up from his clipboard and nearly dropped it. "Oh my God," he whispered. "What is she doing here?" Someone repeated. But he didn't answer. He didn't have to. Because a moment later, she appeared at the edge of stage C, a woman in a crisp slate gray suit, platinum watch, and expression carved from marble. Jessica Vale, the Amazon MGM senior production oversight officer. A person who didn't step onto sets unless something was catastrophically wrong. Not script issues. Not scheduling problems. Not budget concerns. Jessica Vale only arrived when it was time to contain a crisis. A serious one. The kind no studio ever wants the public to hear about. The room fell dead silent. Not a whisper. Not a cough. Not a sound. Just Jessica striding forward with that intimidating blend of calm efficiency and quiet authority. A fictional makeup artist murmured under her breath. "This is bad. Like very bad." Another whispered. "She's the one they send when they're preparing for legal fallout." And then, Jessica stopped, right in front of Meghan. Meghan didn't move at first. Not a blink. Not a twitch. But the shock was visible, not in her expression, but in the way she exhaled just a little too sharply. "Meghan Markle," Jessica said. Voice smooth. Controlled. Professional. Meghan finally spoke. "I wasn't told corporate was visiting." Jessica smiled politely. "It wasn't a visit." Silence. "It's an intervention." Every pair of eyes in the room snapped toward Meghan. And in that moment, that frozen, loaded moment, the atmosphere shifted again. It wasn't tension anymore. It was anticipation. Dangerous anticipation. The kind that makes your stomach drop because you know something explosive is about to unfold. Jessica Vale stepped aside and motioned toward a private conference room near the editing bay. "Meghan, I'd like to speak with you." Now. She didn't ask. She instructed. And Meghan, for the first time that day, hesitated. Only for a beat. But everyone saw it. Then she lifted her chin and walked toward the conference room with a confidence that was starting to feel more like armor than authority. The door shut behind them. Hard. The moment it clicked into place. The studio erupted. "Did you see her face? Corporate? Already? Jessica Vale? Of all people. Someone must have sent a serious report. I heard they logged 6 incidents today alone." 6? It's barely lunch. No wonder she's here. This is damage control. And then, something new. Something dangerous. Whispers turned into murmurs. Murmurs turned into mini huddles. Mini huddles turned into a quiet but unstoppable ripple across the building. People started talking. Not about wardrobe. Not about the table read. Not about the Shorner confrontation. About everything. Everything they'd seen. Everything they'd heard. Everything they'd experienced. Not just today, but in the days leading up to Meghan's arrival. The mood shifted from gossip to confession. From frustration to exposure. From silence to whistleblowing. A fictional sound engineer was the first to break. He leaned toward a producer and said quietly, "I didn't report it earlier, but something happened last week." Before she even arrived. "What do you mean?" She had someone call ahead. A handler. They said Meghan needed her own lighting adjustments for rehearsal. Lighting? For a table read. Exactly. What did they ask for? A full reshaping of the rehearsal space. The producer blinked. "You're kidding." "I'm not." They wanted every fluorescent bulb replaced with warm LEDs. They wanted her chair angled at a 45-degree tilt for optimal camera readiness. Even though there weren't any cameras. The producer stared at him. "This is the first I'm hearing of it." "Yeah," the engineer whispered, "because I didn't want to cause trouble." And now, the engineer looked upstairs toward the conference room. "Now, I think trouble has already arrived." That was the first whistle. Then came another, and another, and then the dam broke. People started forming little circles. Makeup, wardrobe, props, lighting, assistants. Each group sharing things they had been too afraid to say out loud. But with corporate present, with Jessica Vale behind a closed door with Meghan, people felt safe, or at least safer. And that's when stories began spilling out like dropped marbles rolling across a floor. The wardrobe assistant. She rejected every outfit we showed her, said they lacked imagination, then told us to elevate our taste level. The camera operator. She demanded final approval on her angles. During rehearsal, the props lead. She asked us to remove a wine glass from a scene because she thought it made her character look weak. The script said she was having a mental breakdown. The assistant director. She arrived with her own schedule and told me to send it to the entire crew. The makeup artist. She brought her own products and told me not to touch her face unless she said the word green light. One of the writers. She tried to rewrite dialogue for other characters. Another writer. She tried to rewrite an entire episode arc. And then, the biggest bombshell yet. A fictional intern whispered, "There's more. People haven't said it, but we think she's recording things." The group froze. "What do you mean recording? She always has her phone out. Always. And she keeps leaving voice memos on. During meetings? During everything." The grip assistant swallowed hard. "That's bad." No one disagreed. Because in Hollywood, unauthorized recordings are a nuclear threat. Not just unprofessional. Not just disruptive. Not just uncomfortable. Illegal. And if Amazon MGM caught wind of that, well, you can imagine the implications. Meanwhile, inside the conference room, Meghan and Jessica Vale sat across from each other, the air between them thick enough to slice with a prop sword. Jessica didn't open with accusations, or hostility, or shame. She opened with something much scarier. Facts. "Several staff members have filed incident reports," Jessica began calmly. Meghan stiffened. "That's exaggerated. We will review everything thoroughly," Jessica continued. "But we need to hear your perspective as well." "There's nothing to review. They're misinterpreting my professionalism." Jessica nodded once. Deliberately. Silently. Which was far worse than arguing. "And the conduct form?" Meghan said sharply. "Is that your idea?" "No," Jessica replied. "It was a last resort." Then she slid a printed stack of papers across the table. Meghan hesitated. "What's this?" "Compiled feedback from today's incidents." Meghan stared at the stack. It was thick. Much thicker than she expected. She didn't touch it. Jessica folded her hands. "Meghan, this is not a punishment. This is an intervention to protect the production. And to protect you. Protect me. Yes. Protect you from a pattern you may not be aware you're repeating." That hit Meghan like a slap. She didn't show it on her face, but her breathing shifted. Barely, but enough. "A pattern?" she echoed. Jessica nodded. "Your interactions. Your tone. Your corrections. Your approach to authority. Your resistance to direction." Meghan's jaw clenched. "That's not a pattern, Jessica. That's leadership." Jessica leaned back slightly and said nothing, but the silence said everything. Outside the conference room, the showrunner, director, and producer waited. Not pacing, not whispering. Sitting. Still. Alert. Because they knew. Jessica Vale didn't come to negotiate. She came to evaluate. And evaluations can lead to terminations. Especially when the stakes are this high. But before Jessica could finish the meeting, before Meghan could respond, before decisions could be made, something unexpected happened. Something that shocked everyone. Something that turned this intervention into an explosion. Because someone else walked into that waiting room. Someone who had no business being there. Someone who made the showrunner stand up so fast her chair nearly toppled. Someone who made the director mouth the word. "No, no, no." Someone who made the producer whisper, "Oh, you've got to be kidding me." Who walked in? None other than the last person anyone expected to see. Prince Harry. And what he was about to do would change everything. And no one, not even Meghan, saw it coming. Prince Harry didn't glide into the studio. He didn't sneak in quietly. He didn't ask permission, didn't greet staff, didn't smile. He stormed in. The automatic doors slammed shut behind him with a thud so loud the entire waiting room flinched. It wasn't the entrance of a duke. It wasn't the entrance of a visiting celebrity. It was the entrance of a man who had been pushed past his threshold. A fictional production assistant, visibly stunned, whispered, "He looks furious." Another corrected him. "No, he looks scared and furious." Because that was the truth. Harry wasn't just angry. He was panicked. And panic makes people reckless. "Where is she?" Harry demanded. His voice was low, but not calm. The kind of low that comes right before the eruption. The showrunner stood up slowly. "Prince Harry. Where is she?" The director swallowed. In the conference room. With Jessica Vale. Harry didn't even respond. He strode straight toward the door. The producer jumped in front of him. "Harry, you can't go in there. It's a corporate meeting." Harry's eyes flared. "My wife is in there." "Yes," the producer said carefully. "And she needs to handle this with the studio. Without outside interference." Harry stepped closer. "I am not an outside interference. I am her husband." The showrunner interjected. Firm, controlled, but respectful. And this is a workplace, Prince Harry. She needs to handle this. Harry's face hardened. I'm going in. Harry. Too late. Harry pushed the door open. Hard. And what he walked into would ignite the biggest explosion the studio had ever seen. Inside the conference room, Jessica Vale and Meghan were seated across from each other. Jessica's posture, composed. Meghan's posture, coiled. The tension, suffocating. The moment Harry burst in, both women turned. Meghan sprang up from her chair. Harry, what are you doing here? Harry didn't answer her. His eyes were locked onto Jessica Vale. You, he said slowly, called my wife into an interrogation. Jessica didn't blink. This is not an interrogation, Mr. Windsor. This is a professional review. Harry stepped closer. Professional reviews don't bring in corporate overseers. They do. Jessica replied calmly. When multiple incident reports accumulate on day one. Harry froze. Incident reports? Meghan cut in sharply. They're exaggerating. They're twisting everything I do. Harry's jaw clenched. No one should be treating you this way. Jessica folded her hands neatly. Prince Harry, with respect, your presence complicates a process that is already fragile. Fragile? Harry echoed. His voice cracked with disbelief. You're humiliating my wife. Jessica remained composed. We are addressing professional conduct concerns. That is not humiliation. That is procedure. Harry laughed. Bitter. Disbelieving. Procedure? You call this procedure? A 3-on-1 meeting? A stack of complaints shoved in her face. Meghan watched them. Her eyes bouncing between the two. She didn't interrupt. Not yet. Because Harry was saying what she wanted to say, but couldn't, without escalating things further. Harry stepped closer. You're ganging up on her. Jessica finally stood. Slowly. Deliberately. Like someone who understood the gravity of the moment. Prince Harry, she said, I need to make something very clear. Your wife is an actor in this production. A valuable actor, yes, but still part of a large team. And her behavior today has raised serious concerns among multiple departments. You're attacking her character. No, Jessica corrected. We are addressing her conduct. Harry's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. She doesn't deserve this. Then, Meghan finally spoke. Harry, she said softly, they're trying to push me out. Jessica inhaled deeply and replied, No one is pushing you out, Meghan. But if the behavior continues. Harry cut her off. If the behavior continues? What behavior? Jessica picked up the stack of documents. These, she said, tapping them, are employee reports. Anonymous. Harry snapped. Convenient. Jessica met his eyes. Multiple reports, she repeated. From multiple departments. Meghan shot forward. All lies. Jessica turned to her. They're consistent. Meghan's eyes widened with fury. They're coordinated. Harry nodded supportively. She's right. This feels targeted. Jessica turned her gaze slowly between the two of them, and then delivered a sentence that made the air leave the room. If this were targeted, the studio would have taken much stronger action already. Silence. You could hear electricity humming in the walls. Harry's hands curled into fists. So what is this then, he asked. A warning? A threat? No, Jessica replied. A safeguard. Meghan scoffed. A safeguard against what? Against me existing? Against me having opinions? Jessica remained steady. Against further escalation. Harry laughed again. A short, harsh burst. You're talking about escalation? You dragged corporate onto the set on day one. You practically ambushed her. Jessica's jaw finally tightened. Prince Harry, with all due respect, the only person escalating right now is you. That sentence hit him like a slap. He took a step forward. Meghan instinctively reached out. Harry, but he wasn't listening. He pointed at Jessica. You don't get to speak to me like that. Jessica didn't flinch. And you don't get to interfere in a workplace process. Harry's voice grew louder. I won't let you bully her. Jessica's voice grew colder. And we won't allow her to bully the staff. The room froze. Meghan gasped, her hand flying to her chest. Harry's entire face changed. Shock, disbelief, offense, rage, all fighting for dominance. You're calling my wife a bully? I'm calling her conduct today unacceptable, Jessica said. Meghan stepped between them, voice quivering with fury. No, no, I will not sit here and be vilified. I came here to work, to lead, to elevate this project. And you, she pointed at Jessica, have decided on day one that you don't like me. Jessica exhaled slowly. This is not personal, Meghan. Everything is personal. Not in a workplace. Especially in a workplace. The two women stood inches apart. Pointed. Sharp. Unyielding. Harry watched, breathing hard. Then he said something that made Jessica's expression shift for the first time. Not with anger. With concern. I'm pulling her from the project, Harry said. Meghan gasped again. Harry. Jessica shook her head. Prince Harry, that would violate. I don't care. Contractual obligations. I don't care. And legal terms you both signed. I said I don't care. But Meghan did. Her eyes shot wide open. Harry, no. You can't just. He grabbed her hand. We're leaving. Jessica stepped forward. No, she said firmly. Not until this meeting is resolved. Harry stared at her. Then delivered the line that stunned even Meghan. The meeting ends now. Jessica's eyes hardened. Then understand something, both of you, she said. If you walk out of this room, the studio will interpret it as a refusal to cooperate. And, Harry demanded. And that, Jessica said slowly, will trigger a formal review. Harry paused. Meghan froze. A formal review. That wasn't just paperwork. That wasn't just meetings. That wasn't just reprimands. A formal review meant consequences. Real ones. Like halting production. Like invoking breach clauses. Like terminating contracts. Meghan's hand tightened on Harry's arm. He looked at her. She looked back. And that was the moment, according to fictional insiders, where everything changed. Not because of what Harry did, but because of what Sarah, the assistant director standing outside the room, overheard next. A sentence. A whisper. Sharp. Quiet. Devastating. Meghan said, if they push me, I'll push back harder. Sarah wrote it down. And that note became the spark that ignited the first wave of whistleblowers. But what exactly did they expose? What did they reveal to corporate? And what was the incident that crossed the line? You're about to see it unfold in Chapter 2, Part 3. Because what came next would change everything. And no one saw it coming. Whistleblowers don't emerge suddenly. They don't appear out of thin air, holding statements and screenshots and quiet fury. They build pressure. They observe. They wait. And then, something breaks inside them. A subtle shift. A realization. A moment where silence becomes complicity. According to multiple fictional insiders in this dramatized account, that moment happened the second Meghan whispered, if they push me, I'll push back harder. Because that wasn't just defiance. It wasn't just frustration. It wasn't just a heated comment during a tense meeting. It was a threat. A subtle one. A quiet one. A deniable one. But a threat nonetheless. And the assistant director who overheard it, Sarah, quiet, competent, the kind of person who never caused trouble and never slipped into gossip, felt her stomach twist. Not because she disliked Meghan. Not because she wanted her gone. Not because of jealousy or politics. But because she had seen it before. That tone. That posture. That escalating certainty that everyone else was the problem. She'd seen productions implode from it. She'd seen actors spiral from it. And she'd seen entire teams burn out from it. That whisper, that promise of retaliation, was the moment Sarah decided to act. And she wasn't alone. When Meghan and Harry finally emerged from the conference room, Meghan with fire in her eyes, Harry with a storm brewing beneath his skin, Jessica Vale composed but visibly chilled. The entire studio watched them. No one spoke. No one dared. Meghan didn't look at anyone. Harry glared at almost everyone. And Jessica? She simply walked past them all, her expression unreadable, her posture sharp, her mind racing with next steps. The moment they turned the corner, Sarah stepped forward. The showrunner, director, and producer turned to her. What happened? The showrunner asked urgently. Sarah swallowed. Jessica warned them about escalation. Harry threatened to pull Meghan out. And Meghan said. She hesitated. The director's voice tightened. Sarah, what did she say? Sarah inhaled slowly. She said, if they push me, I'll push back harder. The showrunner closed her eyes. The director cursed under his breath. And the producer whispered, that's it. That's the tipping point. Minutes later, the whistleblowing began. One voice, then another, then a group, then multiple departments. It spread not like gossip, but like confession. Quiet, steady, unavoidable. They didn't shout. They didn't dramatize. They didn't embellish. They simply told the truth of what they had experienced. In this fictional dramatization, and let the weight of it fall into the hands of corporate. And Jessica Vale, now armed with dozens of new statements, walked back into the conference room. Not to confront Meghan again. Not yet. First, she needed evidence. Documentation. Patterns. Consistency. And she got them. The wardrobe team gave reports. Makeup gave reports. Props gave reports. Lighting gave reports. Writers gave reports. And then, the big one. The one that made Jessica pause mid-sentence as she read it. A senior crew member approached her and said quietly, "There's more. Something you haven't heard." Jessica lifted her eyes. "What is it?" He glanced around to ensure no one else was listening. Then he said, "She threatened an actor." Jessica straightened. "Who?" He hesitated. "Off the record," he said. Jessica nodded. He leaned in. She cornered a supporting actress near the craft services table and told her, "Don't overshadow me in tomorrow's rehearsal." Jessica's expression darkened. "And that was it?" she asked. "No," he replied. "What else?" He swallowed hard. She said, "You're replaceable." "I'm not." Jessica closed the folder. Firmly. With finality. That was the moment the whistleblowing stopped being noise and became a case. Meanwhile, Meghan and Harry were outside in the studio courtyard, pacing like restless shadows. Meghan kept her arms crossed, breathing sharply. Harry kept running his hand through his hair, muttering under his breath. "They're attacking you," he kept repeating. "They're out to embarrass you. They're jealous. They're threatened. This is a setup." Meghan nodded quickly. "Yes, exactly. I knew it. I felt it. They were against me from the moment I walked in." Harry grabbed her hands. "You don't have to put up with this." Meghan whispered. "I won't." Then she added something that made even Harry pause. "I'll call my own people." Harry hesitated. "Who?" "My lawyers." Harry stiffened. "Meghan." She didn't let him finish. "They want to push me? Fine. I'll push back. Legally. Publicly. Whatever it takes." For the first time in the entire day, Harry showed fear. Real fear. Because Meghan in defensive mode was one thing. But Meghan in retaliation mode? That was a different storm entirely. "We should slow down," Harry said. "Think. Plan. Consider what they have." "What they have?" Meghan shot back. "Lies. Gossip. Staff who don't like strong women." Harry didn't answer. Because even he, even in this fictional dramatization, could sense there was more to it. But he didn't want to admit it. Not to himself. Not to her. And definitely not to corporate. Inside, Jessica finished collecting the final whistleblower statements. Then she said something the showrunner had never heard from her in 16 years of studio crises. "This isn't just a conduct issue." The showrunner stiffened. "Then what is it?" Jessica closed the folder slowly. "This is a liability issue." A silence rippled through the room. A liability issue. That meant reputational risk, legal risk, workplace risk, financial risk. And in Hollywood, that's the worst kind. Jessica exhaled. "We need to address this tonight." "By address," the director said carefully, "you mean?" Jessica nodded. "Yes. It's time for the formal review process." The producer nearly choked. "Already? On day one?" Jessica didn't blink. "You heard the whistleblowers. You saw the reports. And if even half of this is accurate—" "It is," the showrunner said quietly. "I witnessed some of it myself." Jessica nodded once. "Then yes. We begin the formal review tonight." The director asked the question hanging in the air. "And Meghan?" Jessica didn't answer at first. Then, slowly, "She will be notified." The room chilled. Because notified meant one thing. Suspension. Pending review. Suspension of the lead actress. On a major Amazon MGM production. On day one. A nuclear option. A last resort. A move so drastic it rarely happened in the industry. But the showrunner knew. The director knew. The producer knew. And Jessica Vale knew. They didn't have a choice anymore. Meghan had crossed too many lines too quickly. And then, as if the universe wanted to punctuate the moment, the lights in the studio flickered. Someone whispered, "A bad omen." The showrunner replied, "No, not an omen. A warning." And then, a knock on the conference room door. The room froze. Jessica opened it cautiously. A trembling wardrobe assistant stood outside. "Jessica, there's something else." Jessica tensed. "What is it?" The assistant swallowed hard. "There was an incident. Just now. With Meghan." Jessica's pulse quickened. "What incident?" She confronted someone. "On set." Jessica stepped forward. "Who?" The assistant's answer made Jessica go still. Harry, she whispered, isn't the only one who stormed in today. Jessica's eyes narrowed. Who else stormed in? The assistant hesitated, then said the words no one expected. Someone from Meghan's past. Jessica inhaled sharply. Who? The assistant whispered. A former colleague from Suits. Jessica paled, and that was the moment everyone realized. The whistleblowers hadn't revealed the biggest secret yet. The biggest secret had just walked onto the set, and what happened next would detonate everything, and no one saw it coming.